Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are kicking off Redis Zero to Hero series. So, Redis is not just a cache, it's the engine behind some of the fastest systems. For example, Netflix uses it for recommendations, Uber for real time tracking, Book My Show for lightning fast bookings. So, in this series, we will not just learn Redis by exploring core data structures. We will see how Redis is used in production systems every day. Instead, we will build production grade systems, for example, the caching engines, the chat applications, for example, Microsoft Teams or Slack, and we will also design trending service. We will design live leaderboard, for example ClickBuzz, ClickInfo. We will also build one project, for example the geospatial service, finding the nearest restaurant location locator to your location, and we will build all those systems step by step. So we will also discuss various system design concepts which can be used across many systems. So let's get ready, let's dive in and go from zero to Redis Hero. So what is Redis? Redis is most loved, amazingly fast in-memory database which comes under NoSQL category. Is Redis fast? Yes, very fast. Its response time is in sub-milliseconds level. Okay, now your next question could be, is it faster than MongoDB, Postgres, MySQL? Yes, it is very faster than all the other databases. Okay, then you would ask, okay, why can't we use Redis everywhere? Why we are using Postgres, MySQL or MongoDB? Okay, so storing 1 terabyte data on disk is cheaper than storing 1 terabyte data in RAM, right? So Redis is an in-memory database. We can't store tons of data into the memory. So that is the reason we can't replace, the Postgres, MongoDB or MySQL database with the Redis, right? So that is the reason we can't replace the existing databases, right? So actually Redis comes under the database category. When we think of database, we normally visualize relational tables or JSON documents in MongoDB, right? But Redis is different, right? So instead of database, imagine this is as a data structure server. It provides so many data structures similar to the data structures which exist in the programming language. For example, in Java we have list, set, map, sorted set, and so many so forth, right? So we have so many data structures. So similar data structures what Redis also provides. So the correct term I would prefer is the data structure server instead of the database server, right? So now the use cases is Redis is not just used for only caching purpose. It can be used for pub sub, right? So for example, when we will build the chat application, we will see this pub sub mechanism being used over there, right? It can be used as a message queue, it can be used for streaming applications, it can be used for geospatial applications, for example finding the nearest service or nearest, for example the nearest restaurant near to your location. So we will also build one project based on this geospatial data structure as well, right? So in short, what I mean to say here is Redis will not replace your existing database, for example MongoDB, Postgres, MySQL. Instead, it will be a part of your architecture as a performance booster, right? So we will discuss various use cases, various problems what Redis actually solves in real life to get a gist of it, and where all we can use Redis very heavily, right? So, okay, the next question could be, who all uses Redis? So, Redis can be almost, you can name a famous company, for example, Netflix, Twitter, Slack, Stack Overflow, Airbnb. Each and every famous organization uses Redis, right? Now, the next question could be, okay, is Redis free or open source? What kind of services Redis provides? Okay, Redis is free and open source. right? When you Google Redis, you would come across two sites. First is the redis.io. It is a free and open source. You can download the Redis from here. You can install on your machine, right? And the other service is the redislabs.com. It's a kind of, for example, the Mongo Atlas. It similar to this, the Redis provides this commercial cloud service. It's a kind of cloud managed Redis instance which provides high availability and scalability. So they take care of all those aspects in this service. So in these two variants, we can use Redis in the production. So next, why do we need Redis and what problems it solves, right? So in real life, you don't run single Spring Boot application. You run multiple microservices and you have the microservice architecture. For example, on this screen, I'm just taking an example of an e-commerce application, and let's to simplify this, I have just represented few services of that e-commerce application. There could be many other services existing, but for simplification I have just representing five services. For example, the user service, order service, payment service, product service, and the shipping service. Not only that, we have multiple instances of the user service, multiple instances of each and every service. So based on load, you decide how many instances you need. For example, for payment service, you might need 5 instances. For user service, you might need 2 instances, and so on, so forth. So based on load, you decide all these things, right? Now, these microservices should be stateless as much as possible, right? Then someone should be maintaining this state. Who is that someone? That someone could be some database, could be some object storage like S3, or could be some other service which would manage the state. Now that the someone could be Redis as well, but in which cases we can use Redis? Now let's discuss all those cases. Right. Now, the very first use case is the network calls. Let's take an example of same e-commerce site. Right. We have a product service. As and when it receives request from the user, it goes to the database, fetches to the product among millions of products, and return the result to the user. Imagine the next moment, user simply refresh the browser. What would happen? The product service would again receive the new request and then again build the database query, tries to fetch the product among millions of the products, and then return the product to the user. So it's a kind of repetition of work which is being happening over and over again and again, actually, for same or different user, right? So now you can imagine a case where the famous product is being launched. For example, the iPhone 17 is being launched, right? So you could expect very huge surge of request onto the product service, right? And what product service would do, it would go to the database and try to fetch the same product again and again for different or millions of requests, right? Now you would argue that, okay, so if this is the kind of requirement, I can use the reactive stack, I can use the Webflux, I can use the complete reactive stack with the asynchronous non-blocking with back pressure support, and can uh, use the system resources very efficiently, would handle this case, right? You would think of this, right? But this is not the real problem over here. This is the kind of repetition work which is being happening over and over again, right? So this is the problem which the Redis can solve this, right? So you could store that famous product or the product details into Redis, so that it can be shown very fastly to the user for better user experience. So Redis can be used over here to store the product details, the product information, so that it can be fetched very efficiently from the cache itself and can be shown to the user. Now, why Redis? Why not other instances? Because Redis is most popular and being mostly used for this kind of cases. So Redis can very efficiently fit over here, right? Now, the next use case could be the heavy computation. This is also similar to use case 1, but more of user specific information. For example, your business requirement is whenever user logs in, right? So you should recommend some products to him based on his past history or based on his view history. So you have a recommendation service which goes to the database and fetches the information about the user, and then this service do some heavy computation based on his data or view history, and then recommend some products to the user, right? Now again, the same issue, the user simply refreshes the browser, right? Now again, the you need to recommend the product to the user, again you need to compute all these things, and then only recommendation service would recommend few of the products, right? So here also we can use Redis to store all the aggregated heavy computation data onto the cache itself, and later it can be used to just recommend few of the products to the user based on his past history. Let's discuss the use case 3, that is the external API. Sometimes the issue could be slightly different. Let's consider this scenario. Let's consider the same Amazon like website, right? So what users do, users go to the Amazon, buy product from Amazon, but there is a shipping service in the Amazon which actually interacts with the shipping vendors. For example, the FedEx, ExpressBees, Blue Dot, right? So these vendors, it exposes the APIs through which shipping service can create shipping ID, tracking labels, and so on and so forth, right? So our users to check the order status, right? To check the where the order is currently, where it is being currently located, right? So to check that particular status, users would usually come onto the Amazon website, right? So people are impatient, they check order status very often, right? So if they are checking order status so often, what would happen? Shipping service would call each and every time to this vendors to check the order status where it is currently, right? So imagine there is a kind of contract between these two systems, right, with the Amazon and between these shipping vendors. So there is a contract, and there could be some kind of rate limiting as well. For example, these vendors might have a contract with the Amazon that in 1 hour window you can make only 1,000 requests, rate limiting, otherwise they would need to pay extra money to them, right? So imagine this kind of cases, right? So if users would continuously many users come onto the Amazon checking the order status quite often, and if we don't have some kind of state management, right, then the shipping service would be continuously sending the APIs to the external vendors to check the order status, right? So this would reduce the calls which Amazon can make in 1 hour window, right? To make it more robust and make it more scalable, what we can do, we can store the order information into the Redis cache, right? So that whenever users comes, we can fetch from that cache where the order is currently being delivered, or where the order is currently, right? So based on that, the shipping service can show the order status to the user. So in this case also we can use Redis very efficiently, right? Now the use case fourth could be the trending info. For example, currently the trend is being going, right? Rohit Sharma 2027 World Cup, Virat Kohli the king. So sometimes what happens, the business wants to know the user behavior in real time, not after 10 days. For example, if Twitter sees people are tweeting about these tweets, right, then it needs to be shown immediately to the user so that users get engaged with the website. There is no point in finding a trend after 10 days. So Redis provide so many data structures which helps us to show the trending info onto the board, right? So that users gets engaged with the website. So right, so for example, the live leaderboards, the trending tweets, trending products, trending services. So all kind of this trending information can be achieved very easily with the help of Redis data structure. So we can use Redis for these kind of applications as well. Okay. The fifth use case where we can use Redis as a message queue. So, for example, the real-time notifications, the chat messages, or inter-service communication. For example, the Microsoft Teams or Slacks. If you are using in your organization, we can build these kind of chat applications with the help of Redis. So, if you see in the diagram over here, they could be publishers, subscribers, and we can use Redis to make them communicate among each other, right? Instead, we will build one chat application project in this series from scratch, and you will get to know how we can use Redis as a message queue, right? How the users can communicate with each other with the help of Redis. So we will see that in this series as well. Right now, the sixth use case, we can use Redis as a session management. For example, the similar example you can take it, right? The Amazon e-commerce application, there is a user service, right? As soon as user logs in, this user service, what it needs to do, it needs to authenticate from the database first, authenticate with the help of username and credentials, whether the user is active, inactive, right? So all those things, it authenticate that, and then again that it create some kind of access token or refresh token and return that access token to the front end, right? So as and when the new request comes onto the user's service, so to just see whether the user is legitimate user who is trying to book the product or book the to book the order. So to verify that whether the user is legitimate or the user is illegal user, so we do some kind of access token and refresh token. So on every request, so the front end sends the access token or refresh token, and we cannot store these token onto the database, because for every request we can't go to the database, validate whether this token is valid or not, right? And validate all the other things. So what we do, we usually store these token into the Redis, and then on every request we fetch that token from the Redis and validate whether this user request is legal or illegal, and based on that we further track down the other requests. So that's how we can use Redis in this use case as well, right? So that's all, guys. So these are the all use cases where we can use Redis, and these are the all problems which Redis actually solves. So if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, do hit like. It really helps the channel. Subscribe to stay updated with Redis to Zero to Hero series. Drop a comment with your questions or use cases, and also share it with your friends or teammates who want real production level Redis knowledge. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.